Thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, so I'd like to introduce our speakers for today. You could see their talk titles as they come up, and that was on the webinar invitation and website. So Laura Biven has a PhD in mathematics, and after 12 years at the Department of Energy in the US, leading agency efforts on data management and data science, she is now at the National Institutes of Health in the Office of Data Science Strategy, where she serves as the data science technical lead. I will mention that Laura spent 3 years as a AAAS Science and Technology Policy Fellow a few years ago, and I had the honor of doing that as well. And so if anybody here in the States is interested in participating in that program and you ever want to reach out to us, former AAAS fellows are always happy to talk about that program, which is just a great thing that helps us move forward science policy here in the US. Amanda Carbonneau has a PhD in genetics, and she's a carpentries instructor, which is just super. And we may call on her in the future to collaborate on some things there. She has a very broad scientific background across many fields. And she brings that experience and expertise now. She brings that to bear to train researchers to use computational tools and data, and in building communities of practice across several fields. So I'm going to turn it over now to Laura, and I'll stop my video here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melissa, for that nice introduction. Let me just get things a little bit set up here. Hopefully you see a PowerPoint now.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm gonna. Okay, and do you see it now in the proper mode?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, wonderful. So, well, thank you very much for that introduction. As Melissa said, I am the Data Science Technical Lead in the Office of Data Science Strategy at the National Institutes of Health. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a very high-level overview of data science at NIH and the strategic plan for data science, so how we're moving toward a fair data ecosystem for biomedicine, and then just give you a couple of examples of what that really means and some of the initiatives that have started at NIH that I think are going to be very impactful as we go forward. So just a little bit about NIH. So NIH's mission is around fundamental research, but also the application of that research to human health and to looking at diseases. And so NIH, I think, is really focused on each of those components of its mission distinctly, but also the overlap of those things. So really making sure that there's a lot of feedback between the basic research and the clinical application of those discoveries. Just a little bit of history around NIH. So it started, over 100 years ago, but the NIH, as we know it, really sort of started in the 1940s. And then this is a very crude measure, but I think the lines are, you get the gist that I think biomedical research and even clinical practice is becoming more and more data intensive. And so these curves just show some of the growths in data that we're seeing through some of our major repositories at NIH and also the published research. NIH is structured around a number of different institutes and centers, and those institutes and centers, many of them have their own research. So the federal employees are actually conducting research, but then they also sponsor research in universities and other research institutions across the country. So the government speak for that is that there's intramural research, namely the feds are doing it themselves, and extramural research. And both of those components are really important to the NIH mission. And here's just a little diagram showing all the institutes and centers. You obviously won't necessarily know what all of those acronyms mean. I'm new to NIH and I don't know what all of those acronyms mean yet either off the top of my head. But many of these institutes, as you say, sort of have both intramural and extramural, and there are just a couple that have extramural only. And then I wouldn't be a really good bureaucrat without showing an org chart. And so here is an org chart of just a piece of the NIH, the office of this large organization called the Office of the Director. And where I sit is where the lower box is pointing to here in the Office of Data Science Strategy. And it's within this division of program coordination, planning, and strategic activities. And the reason why I wanted to call this out is because our office, the Office of Data Science Strategy, works across all of the other institutes and centers to catalyze improvements and accelerate the pace of data science across NIH. So we're really looking at the connective tissue and the things that really start building out a data science ecosystem and how to really improve data science across the institutes and centers, keeping in mind that those institutes and centers have their own mission and goals for discovery using data. And so we have now a strategic plan for data science at NIH, and it calls out a vision for a modern, integrated, fair biomedical data ecosystem. And it has a number of components to this, to the strategic plan. So here are some of the components. We're focused on data infrastructure. We're focused on modernizing the ecosystem, on the data management analysis, data management analytics and tools, workforce, and stewardship and sustainability. And so this is actually a highly functioning strategic plan where we have a sort of engine of implementation around this strategic plan and really trying to make rapid progress toward a functioning ecosystem for data science. And of course, many of our efforts are focused around the FAIR principles, which I don't have to speak to this audience about, but these are really key, and having them as principles actually is really helpful in communicating some of the best practices around data science across the institutes and centers. So what I'd like to do now is just give you a couple of examples of initiatives that, are being supported through the Office of Data Science Strategy, but in collaboration with other institutes and centers. But I think these two examples I'm going to talk about really speak to some of this connective tissue and what really needs to happen if you want to actualize a fair data ecosystem. So the first one is about cloud platform interoperability and how do you make different cloud platforms holding different sets of data really work together when you really want to this is where the rubber meets the road in terms of data interoperability. And then the second one is a service that NIH is now providing for making it easier for people to log in and access data, controlled access data. So Ncpi, the NIH Cloud Platform Interoperability Initiative, this is an effort to establish and implement guidelines and technical standards to enable users to analyze data across platforms, across cloud platforms. And so this is really about sort of realizing this vision, at least in this, for these participants, and then possibly broadening out, but really sort of trying to create some bottoms-up approaches, sort of researcher-driven approaches to how we can make data interoperability across cloud platforms. And so if you want to learn more about it, there is a public website here, which I have the link to here. So this initiative involves, at the moment, 4 of our key NIH data platforms. And here's sort of the motivating use case. Maybe I need to click through a couple of these. Right, okay, so the motivating use case is that a user might want to come to look for data across each of these platforms and then analyze data from more than one of those platforms. And then in particular, they might want to use a tool hosted in one of the platforms as opposed to another. So they want to take the data that they've found through a search across all of the platforms, and then they want to bring it to one of the workspaces. And so how do you enable that that sort of canonical use case of taking data from one platform to another workspace? So this initiative has a number of different working groups. It's a very collaborative effort that involves not only people on the NIH side, on the federal staff side, but also huge engagement from the community that are the stewards and hosts of those repositories. And they have a number of different working groups. So they're looking at, for example, some of the policy and technical barriers that would come up in thinking about how you would govern these sorts of data movement, this sort of data movement. They're also looking at systems interoperability. So what standards are best to employ if you want to have the search across all of the platforms and you want to be able to access data. They also have an effort in outreach and training. So thinking about what does the user, what sorts of new skills or information would the users need in order to make best use of these new capabilities. And then they're also looking at the FHIR standards and how that can be used as a way of facilitating interoperability across the platforms. So the Ncpi project has only been going on for a year, but already they have some pretty significant results. So they have managed to come to agreement about using the PFP standards for sharing data with workspaces. They're also using the GA4GH DERS standards for accessing data. And then they're also using the researcher authentication service from NIH, which is the project I'll talk about next, to facilitate getting access to all of these different platforms to streamline that aspect. There are still a number of challenges, however, and so one of them is that in order to really make these capabilities useful, the platforms have to have the workflows that the users want to use in the cloud. And so they're trying to avoid the situation where people have to download their data in order to use it with their favorite workflow. And so getting the most used and most popular workflows ready in the cloud to be able to use is one challenge. They're also thinking about how they would expand their partnership to more platforms and how would that work. They've heard from the users that estimating costs for computing in the cloud is a barrier. So there's a hesitation from users to use cloud computing when they can't really estimate the costs, and there's a real hit to their grant budgets if they don't make those estimates appropriately. And then also just a lot of work testing out and piloting the FHIR framework for interoperability as well. And so if you want to learn more about Ncpi, as I said, they do have a public website, and I just wanted to include the links here in case you want to look more. Let me move now to the NIH Researcher Authentication Service. So this is really about making it easier and more streamlined for researchers to access controlled access data, in particular from multiple platforms. And this was something that was borne out through a sort of internal study that we did at NIH, where this came out as really a key need and a key challenge to really realizing interoperability. So what will RAS do? So before RAS, if you wanted to access data from more than one platform or use more than one platform in your workflow, you had to log in multiple times on the different platforms and get authorized and authenticated in multiple different ways. So you're putting in your login information multiple times. And so what NIH decided to do with the RAS project is to create a brokerage service for identity management. So a one-stop shop where you could log in once and then have access to all of the, well, provided you're authorized, you could have access to all of the controlled access data sets for which you have authorization. So just a one-time login. So where we are right now with the RAS project is that you can do this now. So you can log in once with your NIH credentials, and then you can have access. Your information is carried throughout your time logged into these systems, and then you can access different controlled access data without having to log in again. The vision is that we would build out this service to integrate with other types of login credentials and also other types of authentication services possibly as well. So really building out this infrastructure as a login once environment for researchers. And it won't surprise you that the phase one, so the sort of the programs that are piloting this service are the same as the ones that are in the Ncpi project that I just talked about. But RAS is also going to be adopted by a number of other platforms across NIH, and I think this is sort of really taking off now, and lots of people are recognizing the benefit of just having to log in once and having this really be the first step in making a real data ecosystem. And so I wanted to show here as well that there's a website for RAS, and if you wanted to learn more, you can click into some of this link here, which for me is blocked, but hopefully you can see the link at the top as well. And then finally, I just wanted to provide a link to my office and the Office of Data Science Strategy, where you can learn more about our NIH strategic plan for data science and some of the activities that are happening now. I wanted to also point out that we have a workforce program to bring mid-career data scientists and engineers into NIH for 1 or 2 years to really help us craft programs and solve some of our big data science problems. It's called the Data Scholars Program, and you can find a link here from this page. We're accepting applications through, I think, April 9th, and it's a really wonderful opportunity if you want to learn more about biomedical research and data science and the intersection of those things. And if you really want to help biomedical research and health, I really encourage you to apply, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. And with that, I'm very excited to see Amanda's talk and her demo. So I will hand it back to Melissa and then over to Amanda.
Thanks very much, Laura. Thanks for that. That was really interesting and got me up to speed on some things I didn't know about yet. So this is great. Thank you.